All right. Good evening, everyone. We have one item on the agenda tonight, and it is a continued discussion regarding connection fees. If you were not aware and didn't have a chance to watch it, we did have a public meeting last night that Ralph Tellis zoomed in for, which I greatly appreciate. Please pass that on to them for making time for it to educate some of our residents. And we had some in person, and we don't know how many watched online, but we have feedback to share, and I will turn it over to Nathan and Chris to share.
Okay, and I'm turning it straight to Nathan. He and Todd are kind of the specialists that dove into the connection fee part. So, okay, start with that.
Well, thank you. Again, thank you all for your time. We know that this is a very important topic, and we appreciate. I think this is the fourth time we got to talk about it, so it's really great. A lot of good discussion. I'm going to have a real brief presentation that I'll run through because there's not a lot of new analyses that were done. Just kind of summarize where we're at. So, just kind of three items. We'll look at what the numbers were calculated by Ralph Tellis. Just briefly touch on the public meeting and generally some of the comments, and then leave it open for discussion on how we move forward. So for the connection fees, you all are aware, but just showing it for everyone. So existing fee for a water connection fee is we do it based on meter size. 3/4 inch meter is $1,000. Bigger meters have a ratcheted up connection fee, but we always just kind of talk about the 3/4. So 1,000 is where we're currently at. We looked at three different options for our supply because that's what we have now. So we have three sources of water. We get water from Thunderbird treated through our water plant. We have the groundwater system, and we have the Oklahoma City connection. So Thunderbird is a finite capacity, so option one looks at augmenting that to get more water into it. Option two is getting more water from Oklahoma City, and then option three is doing more wells. So what you can see here on this slide is 1,000 where we're currently at. For option one, augmentation, they say the fee that we could charge up to, based on their analysis for that one, is $3,180. For Oklahoma City, it's $2,010, and then for the well option is $2,150. So those are what you could legally charge up to, because that's the cost that they can justify based on their analysis. So we looked at those fees, put them on a chart in relation to other locations. We did get the Goldsby one on here, Councilman Foreman. Thank you. Yeah, so that was the one that we were missing last time. We were able to get that from one of their formal council members. So you can see Norman currently we still show as the highest. And if we obviously were to add additional fee on top of that, we would continue to be the highest. We would just move a little bit further out in front of them. So we've shown this similar graph before. If we look at this graph, kind of showing it side by side, we were asked this on a couple of council meetings, and we finally got it right, I hope, showing the connection fees and the water rates on the other side. Those aren't directly related, but they're somewhat related. So you can see on the left, still connection fees, we were relatively high for other cities. If you look at the rates on the right, we're relatively low. And just kind of maybe a point of emphasis on this. So, when we talk connection fees, we're talking about these are one-time charges that we use for capacity increases. This is like new water, new expansion of the treatment plant, backbone facilities, things that expand capacity within our system. So those are one-time things. When we talk about the rates, those are ongoing costs. That's for us maintaining our existing infrastructure. So the connection fees, yes, those are valuable because we will have to grow supply. We do need to keep charging those. And whatever council decides we need to increase that to or not increase that to, additional funds for us is a good thing. But then on the water rate side, we still will need water rates even if connection fees goes up. That's why we got that proposed rate increase. And it's something to think about when new developments come in. They come in and they pay those impact fees, but they also build all the infrastructure to serve their development. So extend all the streets, extend all the pipes, and those are new assets. So one thing to think about is they're paying their share in on rates, but there's not a whole lot of maintenance that has to go in their development for a long period of time. Whereas if you look at older developments, we do have to spend money on those more, and we don't charge a higher rate to those. We charge everybody the same. So because it's easier to administer and because it's easier on the people. So just kind of want to throw that out there that connection fees, we are focused really a lot on growth, but we also on the rates, new developments are still paying that same share as older developments that require more upkeep. So on the public meeting side, as Mayor Clark mentioned, we held that last night. It was about an hour and a half meeting, in person and live streamed. Had Had about 12 to 15 people there in attendance, plus our staff. Ref Dallas ran through their analysis on the water and wastewater connection fees, did questions and answers, and then also offered the opportunity for people to comment. As you guys would imagine, we had kind of both sides of that. Had people that were looking for, we should charge the full amount, people looking at, should we charge anything more than what we currently do now because of where our fees are at. No clear consensus really from the meeting, unfortunately, but we held that and got their comments from that. And then kind of with that, I don't have a whole lot of additional information to add. I wanted to kind of turn it over to council, see if there's any additional questions on the information that's been presented up to this point or about the meeting, and if there's anything we can do for next steps forward.
Okay, Councilmember Foreman.
You looked at me the whole time.
I'm so sorry,
wondered
I
why.
didn't
I have no idea. I appreciate you pointing out that they put in the roads and all that stuff, but do they pay for the police, the firemen, and the city staff that picks up trash and stuff like that? They don't. That's stuff that we have to take on. Obviously, we can't charge the full amount. That's my dream, but I know that's not a reality. I don't know. I'd like to start the bidding at a $500 increase. Like, I don't know how we...
Okay.
But I think that would be fair. I mean, if the max is 2,000-ish of an increase, like the high end, then...
Well, I want to throw something out there. So we know that an increase has to happen in the interest of fairness between businesses and residents. We're asking our residents for a 25% increase. It would seem like a fair compromise to ask our businesses for a 25% increase. And I know that is not anywhere near the numbers of 2150, 2010, or 3180. However, we do look at this every 2 years. And I know that augmentation is my dream, but I don't think we're far enough along yet to really make a call on if we need to raise it to that amount. But we look at it every 2 years. And so I am not comfortable asking voters to support a rate increase without asking everybody to support a rate increase, and the same percentage seems reasonable. So what are your all thoughts on a 25% and just calling it good and everyone's getting an increase? Councilman Peacock.
I mean, I think we have to find common ground somewhere. I mean, you hear one side of the aisle saying, if we don't get a connection fee increase, we're going to tank the whole thing. And you hear the other side saying, if we raise connection fees, we're going to tank the whole thing. So there's got to be some middle ground there, and I think that's a fair compromise, if you ask me.
Councilmember Schuler?
So I guess I have a question before I guess I comment, because there's been some discussion and comment among residents that we aren't looking at this every 2 years. And so is that really happening? I'm still new to council. I'm still trying to figure this out. Is there a way that we can ensure that council does continue to look at connection fees? I think that's a concern of residents, that we aren't continuing to do that on a recurring basis. And so they hear from us, oh, we're going to look at this every 2 years. We can do this. This is a simple vote of council, and we can raise these connection fees. But I want to make sure that we're hearing residents to say that we are going to look at this, that there's some way to potentially codify it or think about this more strategically, so that this doesn't get lost for a future council.
Councilmember Schuler, the keeper of the calendar, all things agenda, is sitting here with us, even one-handed. I can assure you that if our direction from council is to ensure that this conversation does take place in 2 years, it will be Mr. Mattingly and Mr. Maddenwall that would be preparing the work with the consultants to bring that back. The benefit of that 2-year window, looking at the water reuse program from the wastewater treatment plant, we are developing that pilot program. It's expensive water, but it is really, really secure because we're going to make 12 to 17 million gallons of wastewater every single day. We need to be farther down that road. We need to be able to demonstrate to Del City and Midwest City what the results of the pilot program look like, and then we still need their approval to move in that direction. So, we're not in a position to say that's the amount of money we need to collect.
Or the best one.
Right.
Yeah.
So we think a 2-year window provides us great opportunity to bring you some analysis on the pilot project and get you some additional input from our other partners in the Lake Thunderbird Water program. So the city clerk will put that on the calendar that far out. Mr. Francisco will be working to make sure we budget whatever increase council may choose to implement, and then Chris and Nathan can coordinate that with Reptelis to make sure that work is available to you December, January-ish of 2023, 24.
And I agree. I have no problem supporting that either, because I want an update and a clearer picture of where we're at on this very important part of our long-term water plan. So I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Councilmember Studley.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get some clarification. You said 25% from residents and 25% from business. So that's 50% of what? The $1,000 that?
No. So the rate increase for the water rates for residents is going up about 25%.
Okay.
So the $1,000,
Of the connection fee
Yes.
will go up. Okay, so the cost of me as a resident, my bill will go up 25%.
Exactly.
And the cost of a developer, their connection fees are gonna go up 25%,
Mm-hmm.
which will be pushed to the homeowner anyways, most likely. But it's spread out like we talked about.
30 years.
With the augmentation portion, so I know what the reclamation is in that pilot program, and I love it. But the augmentation part, is that not something that Del City and Midwest City would be responsible in helping us do, since they're also drinking the water from that lake?
Right now, the first time we tried talking with them about it, they don't want it. They would rather us not put it in the lake, but we see a lot of value.
Not the reclamation, the augmentation. Is that the same
Right.
thing?
Yeah.
Those are the same
Yeah,
thing?
so it's putting our wastewater,
Okay.
highly treated, back into the lake.
That's what's augmenting it.
That's augmenting the lake with some more water.
Okay.
This water, right now, we're sending it down the Canadian River, goes to Lake Eufaula, City of Eufaula drinks it.
Right.
So we're saying we could treat it higher quality, put it in the lake, and it'll be a good thing for our community, Del City and Midwest City. Right now, they're not there with us yet.
Okay.
But
I
so-
was just, I guess for some reason I thought I remember hearing you talk about in a meeting that there's like some sediment that happens in the lake over time, and that's what causes the water basically to be muddy and why we can't drink it anymore. And I guess in my head I was thinking like augmentation was getting that stuff out of the lake.
No,
Okay.
That was just my ignorance.
No
Thank you.
worries. Councilmember Hall.
I was just going, that was the exact point I was going to make about we haven't done the review that we needed to do since 2015, really, that I'm aware of. And I think that's a really important part of the cycle. That's what we've committed to do, is to review every 2 years, and I want to make sure we get that formalized as well.
Well, if memory serves, and counting on you, Councilmember Holman, we agreed to discuss it, and we're like, we're not touching it right now, and then moved on. So it was acknowledged, we just didn't do anything with it. But now I think we have actionable items of, I don't think that will happen again, and I will make sure that doesn't happen again. And so we'll keep her of the calendar.
We have had a pandemic.
I think
yet.
another thing that happened was, Ken, I remember it was, when we came back to talk about them, the wells were not complete. So it was an estimated total, what we thought the wells were gonna cost. And he kept saying, let's wait till they're finished,
Yeah.
then we'll have an actual cost to know what it costs to expand in the well field. So he was kind of hoping to get to the end, and we just finished those this last month or two, so.
Okay. Good
So,
point.
to that point, I mean, I think it's important to just set aside that time to have a review, even if it's,
Right,
we're not ready to take a step.
okay.
Okay. Councilmember Tortorello, you?
You know what, Shooter already answered the question, but, and you know, Councilman Studley brought up the same thing too. The connection fees for the developers are only gonna get passed to the homeowners in the end. And so I'm for it. I think we need to upgrade the infrastructure,
Okay.
but keep in mind that these fees are gonna be passed to the consumers anyways at the end, you know, so,
Well, you could say the same
it's,
thing
it's more of a
about,
statement than a question. It's an observation that, you know, we want the developers to pay their fair share, which they do in a lot of different cases, but it'll be passed on to the homeowners to pay ultimately in the end, so that's all I wanted to say.
okay. Councilmember Holman.
Yeah, I was going to mention the what Chris mentioned about Ken, that when we asked for the rate increase in 2015, we had a lot of voters and people voice concern about connection fees hadn't been raised in many years at that time, and that it wasn't fair to ask voters to increase rates and not increase that. And so the council at the time, we told voters that we need these rates for current infrastructure and expansion for the wells that were being planned, but that we would commit to reviewing the connection fees and raising them if necessary, and that we would do we would look at the Reftella study. And so we did. Voters approved that rate increase, over 70%, if I remember. And then we did vote to raise the connection fees afterwards. So we did keep our promise to do that. But Ken Comiskey, the former utilities director, he recommended that exactly that until we go out and try to drill all these new wells, we won't know what the actual cost per well is. And so we don't know what the cost of a connection for new wells is yet. But once we have that figured out, then we can come back and look at it. And that's kind of where we're at, is that we raised them, and then it took a couple years to drill all the wells
Get
and
land.
figure out what they cost. And now we have, so I don't think we really ignored it or, neglected it on purpose or anything like that. I think we were waiting to try to find the real cost, and now we have a pretty good idea about what the cost of those wells are and what building new ones would be going forward. So that's my recollection of the past part of it. And then with Del City and Midwest City, I know that they are not as in need of additional water resources is one of the issues. They don't have the growth that we have seen. In some cases, I think Del City has lost population, so they haven't seen a need for more water. So I think for them, it's been hard to say, why, you don't need to change the lake, you don't need to add anything to it. And it seems kind of weird maybe, and we're not sure, so we don't need it, and it's not really heard of, so we're kind of against it, is kind of what the impression that I've had over the last 6 or 7 years that we've been talking to them about it.
But there is a committee, let's clarify
Yes,
that.
yes.
And so would you briefly explain for those watching and for council members who don't know that we've been working on it, but I think, explain that, but I'll just also say it's still we don't need it, so if you want it, you pay for it. But
Yeah,
we still need their
that's-
approval. So
That's why they won't be helping pay for
Yeah.
anything, because they don't feel like they need it. So.
And so, yeah, the pilot's underway. As we're getting this data in, we're right now we're doing the UV hydrogen peroxide, the final treatment to see how the pharmaceuticals things get taken down to parts per trillion. A good number that we just saw is there's one called PFAS and PFOA. The PFAS, it's new rules coming out, and we're treating way lower than what the standards of concern are. So the system is working. Now we're trying to find out where they went, because we figure they're coming in the raw, but the water's so dirty they don't have a way to test to parts per trillion with that dirty of a raw water. So we can only test it when it's that clean. So we know we are treating and we're meeting that. So that's good news. So the system is working on some of these constituents that we're worried about. And then you asked about Del City, Midwest City. We have a committee that is watching us. We've taken them on a tour. We have Zoom meetings with them every so often just to give them updates. And we're going to invite them out again for this new section that we just added. And because what we're trying to do is invite them we want them to see that this is a good thing for the lake. It's good for them. If we get an extended drought, I think they're really going to want this water, because they're not going to have any water either. If it gets low enough, it will affect them. Right now, they're not affected, but it will. And so we're hoping to get them on as where they want to join us, versus trying to force them or going to our state officials and trying to make that happen. We don't
And
think
I've
that'll
been
work.
to one of these meetings, and everyone seems open-minded. And then we actually had an OU graduate student do a study on the reuse of wastewater. It's just that's the issue. Okay, get it. But once people, she surveyed them before, and then they went on the tour and had a presentation, and then surveyed them again, and attitudes did change once. Shock, people are educated.
And to Councilmember Holman's point about where Mr. Ken Comiskey was in his dedication to deliver to our voters what he said he would deliver in the development of our new well field, we had an opportunity to look at a horizontal water well concept. And it makes a lot of sense when you see the diagrams and how the engineers think about finding a strata of water, and instead of having 30 or 50 feet of perforated well casing where the water actually enters the well, that if you went horizontal, you could have a lot more perforated well casing and potentially produce more water per well. But in Mr. Comiskey's concern, he said, we promised we were going to deliver 2 million gallons, and I know I can deliver 2 million gallons drilling them straight up and down after we've achieved that 2 million gallon number, maybe the next well we try that conceptual horizontal well to see if we can get more water per well, which would reduce operating and maintenance costs, and we get to poke fewer holes in the ground. So another opportunity for us to explore to make sure we're maximizing the value of the investment from user fees and from connection fees.
Councilman Holman?
Yeah, I was going to mention too that with the lake, and correct me if please, Chris, if you need to, the lake was built to be 100-year lifespan, and if nothing was done to it, if it was not augmented in any way, if no maintenance were done to it, that after 100 years it could theoretically would be silted in or no longer usable as a water resource. And so that has been an issue. The lake has gotten shallower over the years as runoff from construction and high winds in Oklahoma have run into the Little River and Dave Blue Creek and all those. As all of the dirt that blows off of these projects and properties, that gets into the lake and over time silts it in. So one of the discussions was about making the lake deeper or building a bigger dam, building another lake, partnering with Ada to build a lake, all sorts of different ideas about how to extend the lifespan of Lake Thunderbird or create another new water source, and augmenting the lake with treated wastewater was the best option that we came up with for guaranteeing that. When it comes to the rate, I definitely am open to exploring compromise for sure, and being as fair as possible to our residents and also to new folks that are moving to Norman or building a home in Norman. It may not even always be a new resident. It could be somebody that already lives here that's building a new home that would have to pay this fee. And then those people do pay a monthly utility rate to the city for the service that they get. So it's a lot of give and take, and there's a lot of services we provide in the city that don't pay for themselves by the fees or rates or whatever it may be that we get in return for it. Sometimes we provide services because that's what we do, but I don't think we should bear an unfair burden of costs for things like that. So I'm open to fair 25%. Good starting there.
Councilmember Studley and then Councilmember Schuler.
I have some follow-ups to kind of what you were saying, just to understand a little bit more background and to get some clarity. So Midwest City and Dell City, have they always been on using Lake Thunderbird's water, or was Lake Draper ever used as a water source? Because I know it's dried out now, but I didn't know if that was ever in the past used.
No, Draper actually is used by Oklahoma City. They just made that bowl in our watershed, and they pump Atoka and McGee Creek up and store it in there, and then they use it for Draper treatment plant. Dell City, Midwest City, Norman, we all participated in the original building of the lake and all paid off the loans on it.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
Thank you. That's all I was just curious about now.
Okay, Councilmember Schuler.
I also had some follow-up to our historical knowledge, Councilmember Holman. As you were talking about kind of this idea of us revisiting the conversation about us revisiting every 2 years connection fees, and I appreciate, us wanting to know what we're going to be using that for, especially with drilling wells or working with like augmentation, and what is the right way that we're going to go about that. But as I was listening to you kind of recount the timeline, am I understanding it correctly that we did drill wells and we know now how much they cost, but we didn't raise connection fees before we did that, and so we output money for new capacity without raising connection fees?
We did raise connection fees before we started the drilling
Okay.
process to what they are currently. I think they were 500 maybe.
550, yeah, somewhere in there.
We doubled them really, and then started the process of.
So that was the last conversation about raising, was right before we drilled.
And then we brought it up, but every time staff would say, we're not done with the project yet. We don't have the clear numbers on what it costs yet. So
Okay, just trying to understand the process and the timeline. And And I would also just like to mention that just because we say that it will happen in 2 years doesn't always necessarily mean that it will. And so trying to find the best avenue to ensure that that happens and to reassure residents that we really do mean what we say when we say that we're going to revisit this in 2 years, because in 2 years that's a long time, and we will have new council members and the makeup of, you know, our body will be different. And so I don't know that us just saying that here tonight is enough to sway people to believe us. So that's a concern that I have, but I do agree that there is, I think, a path to compromise, and I think that we should continue having this conversation about what is striking the right balance for what we're asking our residents to increase their rate to, and then also on the other side with connection fees. So I'm in support of finding that compromise, but also trying to make sure that we're hearing residents and ensuring that they feel like we're going to do what we say we're going to do. And if there's a path for that, I'd really like to pursue that as well.
Well, it's something I'm passionate about in terms of this project. I think I've made that clear. But I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. So a better path would be a resolution that we officially, vote on and put forward, saying this will happen and giving it some weight. So I'd be happy to do that at our very next meeting.
That'd be great.
That might have been what we did last time.
Okay, Councilman Berlin?
I've been in support of the water stuff since I came on council. We did it at our retreat. But just for your situational awareness, what I'm hearing, and this is not directly on point with just these connection fees, but it's with the vote coming up and everything, a lot of rumbling from constituents. We're asking them to increase their water rates, and they have problems with that when we still don't have a contract signed with police or fire, and we're wanting to spend other money on other projects, and we're still asking them to come out of their pocket for more stuff. I'm fully in support of it. I'm going to campaign with the people to say, hey, we need this. I'm just letting you know that a lot of people are thinking like that, and it worries me a little bit on it getting passed, because people are like, you want more of our money, and we still need these other services prioritized. So just think about that when we're whipping out money on different things. People are not paying attention, or not paying attention, is what I mean.
Okay, Councilman Foreman?
To that point, I would just say that you need water to live, and so I would say that's a really high priority, and that I have said, and I do plan to put forth in the budget, like a public safety study, and I understand that, and I hope we get to that point to doing that. Huh?
The Dan Munson study.
I came up with it first, okay? But yeah, so I do think, I understand that people have a lot of concerns about how we prioritize, but I do think that clean water is
I'm with you 100%
on that.
but I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. I'm passing along what I'm hearing when we go do it, and I know that they come from different pots of money and whatnot. Mm-hmm. That's not easily always separated. Everybody sees it as their pocketbook and where their taxes are going, regardless of which pot it comes out of.
Chris, can you, or Daryl, can you talk about how that money, how it's different from police pot of money?
Absolutely. As Mr. Mattingly would point out, Mr. Francisco gives Mr. Mattingly 3 checkbooks. He gets a checkbook for water, a checkbook for sewer, and a checkbook for solid waste. The police department, fire department, parks maintenance, and all those other fun qualities of life issues come from the checkbook that Anthony keeps. So those dollars are separate and don't really overlap much at all. Our city attorney reminded us in the ordinance related to connection fees, it says thou shalt bring that back within 2 years. So it's codified. It's coming back in 2 years. Now, it may be a 10-minute conversation and council can punt, or council may say, bring us the full-blown show just like you did with Reptelis and do it over. But the law currently says 2 years coming back.
But you said that we can punt.
Yeah, you could choose in 2 years to say,
You can choose to not raise the connection fees, which is what's happened. We've had the discussions and we've chosen not to raise them.
Okay.
And we haven't hired Reptelis to do those. They've been done by staff. This is the first time I think we brought Reptelis back since the initial study back in 2015.
Councilmember Holman, Councilmember Stedler.
Since we're not involved in labor negotiations really, and I can't remember the last time we had a update from Michael. I'm not sure if Michael's even still our negotiator.
Michael took a hiatus, and Michael is back as we are in between HR directors. New HR director should be starting here in another week and a half or so. Actually just received a communication this afternoon that Mr. Rick Knighton and I went over and communicated back through Michael. We think we may have a deal ready to roll for police and fire.
Well, I agree that the general public views that all city money as being in the same bucket. But it probably would be beneficial to have an update about what's going on because, it's not something we're directly involved in, and we haven't had an update in a really long time. So, I don't know what's going on with.
I'll go drill back down and see how we used to do that with Michael's services, and then Michael
It was
retired
usually
and
once a year.
He was gone.
He would come and we'd
time
have
for
an
him to be
executive
back.
session, and he would tell us, "What do you think? This is what they want." And so that would probably be helpful for us to just know more about what's going on.
We'll make that so.
Councilor Studley?
Just for clarification, and I think we've talked about this at a previous meeting, but how does this affect people in Ward 5 that live on well water? Like my brother has his own water, so how does that affect him and his bill?
The law's written where they get to vote. Even though they're not on the water system, they get to vote on this water rate increase. And how it affects them, it really won't unless they come here and drink some water. But I know I get grumblings out there, and Councilmember Tortorello will back me here. We went out to a meeting. They feel like the city doesn't care about them in the east, but all we're doing is we're coming out there and getting their water and then bringing it in here and thriving here and not caring about them. That's what I felt from the meeting. And so, but I do try to tell them we try to work together. We've been doing this a long time. We had our wells out there already, and we try to only perf the wells from 400 down to 800 feet deep, and we don't poke holes in the sands that are 300 and shallower, okay? And they are usually in that 0 to 300. That's where most
Like the private
landowners.
residents are?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's called a perched aquifer. That's the water they're drinking. So we have test wells at number 42, we always show it. We'll pump that deep zone, and it's kind of and then the upstairs water, it doesn't fall down and go into where we pump the deep water. Theirs stays level because they're all in a shallow bowl of water up there on the top.
So they won't have an increase then on, because I guess they're not getting
They
the
don't
water.
get a
bill.
We're not
They
on
get trash?
city water.
Sanitation.
All we use trash.
Okay.
Yeah, private
Okay.
wells, we're not charged for that, so small portion of Southwest Ward 5 are on city water, but 95% of Ward 5 have private wells and septic, so we're not charged.
And then like you're saying, so whenever we build new wells, we're going way lower. So even though we're out in the east drilling these wells, we're going so deep that it's not going to affect
We try not to
them.
compete with them. So far,
Okay.
we have not competed with their water.
Fair
I never say never, because I do that, I'll get myself in trouble.
We've had a town hall back in August last year. We brought ACOG representatives to explain how the wells are dug and how it does not affect any private wells here. So if we have to do it again every year or every couple of years, we'll do it. Thank you for that, the first time we ran that, but there's no effect on private wells.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay, Councilor Holman?
Just to follow up on that, all the wells we have drilled we didn't use eminent domain to take any property from anybody. That's all willing sellers that we bought at the price they were comfortable with, I guess. So just want to make sure that we're not taking anybody's land to do anything either, and we're drilling below, well below there.
Right. And there's citizens in neighborhoods in downtown Norman that are over that same aquifer
Yeah.
that have water rights too. So Norman has 10 billion gallons of water rights. We're only using about 2 billion gallons of those, okay?
Wow.
You're talking about some real volume there for a minute.
Okay, well, I appreciate the discussion because it shows we're taking this topic that our residents are very passionate about very seriously. And it does acknowledge the unique environment that we have with Ward 5 and wells, and I love the explanation. And it's also complicated in terms of the augmentation option because of Midwest City and Dell City, and waiting to see where we're at with that, how much that will cost. So there's a lot of moving parts right now, but it sounds like we all agree that no one's comfortable moving forward, putting a water rate increase for residents with an moving up and not doing the same thing for the development side. Seeing lots of head nods. Okay. Councilmember Holman.
Yes, just to clarify too, the current rate increase that's on the ballot is not for supply expansion, correct? We're not looking to drill any more new wells or buy any more water from OKC. We're at a comfortable supply level currently. So on the horizon, we're not looking at any more expansion. We're all maintenance and
Customer service.
EPA demands and
Disinfection,
and customer service.
metering, pipe replacement.
That's, given that those options are geared towards a specific thing that we're trying to pursue, and that our number one thing is kind of in the air still, it's hard to justify raising them to that. I absolutely agree. And considering whether we're pursuing expansion or not.
And I like that. May I speak to that too?
Yeah.
We're making 5 billion gallons of water, and we're only accounting for 4 billion. 20% of our water is unaccounted for, or non-revenue water. So we're hoping the metering will help us find the leaks, the lost water. If we're losing 20% of our water, let's tighten that up. Let's get that down to about 10% is more of a normal acceptable trend. 20 is getting up there where that's not acceptable. Let's get that down to 10% before we go look for our next piece of water. See, that's what I think. That's what if we were going to get a loan from EPA or something, that's what they would tell us to do. You tighten up your leaks first, and then come see me when you want a loan to get additional water.
And that's meters, not calculating what's actually going through it, and leaky pipes that we know we got 300 miles to replace.
Big upfront costs to replace all that, of course, but to me, a money saver in the long run by far.
Absolutely.
As opposed to spending millions of dollars to build more wells or buy Oklahoma City or build a new lake or whatever it is. So yeah, that's, I appreciate that. I'm kind of using when I talk to voters in my ward about it or people about it, I say, it's been 7 years. Most cities raise it every year. And, we have, our metering system. Those are the two ones that I really hone on. It's been 7 years, and replacing our citywide metering system could save a lot of water resource and a lot of money for the residents and the city. So those are kind of the two main points I've been hitting on pretty hard.
Councilmember Lynn?
So the biggest part about this is getting the meter system that will make everything more efficient, correct? So if for some reason that this does not pass on the vote, we could use ARPA funds possibly to buy this meter system? Is that within the...
So what I've done, back in 2008, remember we had the decline, and then the government brought in ARRA funds to try to help stimulate the economy. They look for shovel-ready projects. When the government wants to give out money, they like shovel-ready. They like seeing you already with initiative, have design, have your skin in the game, have some of your money already going for it. And what they did on that one is we were doing a $13 million plant expansion, and they looked at that and they said, here's $2 million principal forgiveness. So we did our loan through the SRF program. So I think when we've applied for the metering, the disinfection, we've applied several applications for this ARPA money with the state. I see how it happening is we're going to go get a loan probably from SRF for these two if we can get this passed, and then I would see them giving us some principal forgiveness of some type. If we get that only makes the water fund last longer until we need the next rate increase, or we can replace additional pipes. We don't put it, you can see our fund balance. It's going negative this next year right now as it sits. So we're going to go adjust capital projects and say we can't do that, push it out a year until that's a black number, and then we can move forward. We can't plan for a negative budget. So that's why we're getting tight on what we can plan for. So if we have extra money come in, or if we get grants, we just need those to be black numbers for a year or two out so that we can continue to replace stuff.
Councilmember Foreman?
I don't know, Chris or Mr. Pyle, either of you can answer this, but I have had people in Ward 6 ask me, the city's like ARPA money and all that stuff, why aren't we using our own money to pay for like the meters? Can you answer to that?
About a $17 million package. We received a total of about $22.5. So it potentially could have consumed the lion's share of the ARPA dollars to do the meter install. That was a possibility. We did submit a $17 million application to the state of Oklahoma's $1.8 billion ARPA bucket, and it's still anticipation. Our kind of the challenge is, one, it's not guaranteed. Two, we don't know when they're going to make the announcement as to how the dollars go out.
Yeah.
So the ballot measure had to get, moved forward a month ago, and we've got several plates in the air. But yeah, ARPA and that kind of infrastructure appear to be compatible.
May I speak to one more thing on that? That ARPA money at the state, they really have some earmarks. They like to hear something that you're doing about lead and copper. We have lead lines and copper lines in Norman, and so I've told people, when we go dig up, if we can get this AMI system going, right, we'll be digging up everyone's meter. So that's the time you can identify and find out where your lead and copper lines are. They want us to do that to meet that next rule, the next lead and copper rule. We have to do a systematic approach of where are our lead and copper lines, inventory it, and then we got to start figuring out how we're going to replace them or getting rid of them in our city. So this is like, it'll be a perfect timing if we're in there already digging up the meters. Okay, let's go on inventory. Where's our lead and copper? What are we going to do to start replacing those?
What I'm hearing is, even when this passes and is successful, because it's obviously needed and we're good for what we've done in the past, we're tried and true, if we get money, there's plenty of work to be done.
Yes.
300 miles of steel lines, all got to come out.
So let's hope for both. That's what I'm going to say. All right, well, it sounds like we have consensus. What are the next steps for getting a 25% up to vote in front of the council?
We could do that second meeting in March. Have that for second reading, maybe first reading March 8th.
Set by ordinance, and it goes into effect 30 days
Correct.
after second reading.
Okay, I appreciate that timing because it shows the residents before they go vote that we've done what we said we were going to do.
Did our part.
And they would go into effect almost the same time.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Excellent. All right, well, you all have 18 minutes until we begin the meeting. Good evening, and welcome to the City Council, Norman Utilities Authority, Norman Municipal Authority, and Norman Tax Increment Finance Authority meeting of February 22nd, 2022. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Studley? Here. Councilmember Schuler?
Here.
Councilmember Lynn?
Here.
Councilmember Hall?
Here.
Councilmember Tortorello?
Here.
Councilmember Foreman?
Here.
Councilmember Holman?
Here.
Councilmember Peacock?
Here.
Mayor Clark?
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first item is a proclamation of the mayor of the city of Norman, Oklahoma, proclaiming the month of March 2022 as Irish American Heritage Month in the city of Norman. I need a motion to acknowledge receipt of the proclamation.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to acknowledge receipt of the proclamation. Council members, you may cast your votes.
Sorry, I accidentally cleared it. All votes have been cast and the motion passes unanimously.
All right, I'm going to resurrect the tradition that Councilmember Holman loves so much and start reading proclamations from down there.
I think so.
A proclamation of the mayor of the city of Norman, Oklahoma, proclaiming the month of March 2022 as Irish American Heritage Month in the city of Norman. Whereas the city of Norman recognizes the value an inclusive community creates, and Irish immigrants arrive to our nation driven by determination and dreams. And whereas, based on census data, more than 31.5 million, or 9.7% of Americans, claim Irish ancestry. And whereas reports show Cleveland County has a population of 11.1% Irish ancestry. And whereas the earliest Irish settlers in Oklahoma arrived in the early 1800s and endured hardships, persecution, and famine. And whereas it was through solidarity, the Choctaw Nation helped the people of Ireland come through the hardships so much that Ireland's president, Mary Robinson, visited Durant in 1995 to thank the Choctaw people for their help more than a century before. And whereas today we celebrate Irish culture through green shamrocks, music, river dance, pubs, and food. And whereas the city of Norman believes in the characteristics of inclusivity, hard work, solidarity, and the ability of communities to rise. Now, therefore, I, Mayor of the city of Norman, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2022 as Irish American Heritage Month in the city of Norman, and I invite all citizens to join me in celebrating. I'd now like to recognize Mr. Stewart and Mr. Abden to accept these proclamations.
Thank you.
Turn it over to you. Just kidding. Hold on a second. Hold right there on the lid.
Little hand, yep, we're out there.
It's a trick. Oh, wow, you found it. Okay. I'm new at this.
You're up.
You go ahead. All right.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for this. It's nice to be included. It means a lot that, of course, there's a lot more Irish American heritage. It just means that being included in a small town of Norman, which is where I live as well and work, just brings a little more home to it.
Awesome.
I'd like to say thank you, even though I'm just really Irish for a day. One green day on the 17th. We have a lot of Irish and a lot of green. And thank you for the honor of having the first ever diversity proclamation in the city of Norman. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you and congratulations. Now on to council announcements. Ward 1, Councilmember Studley.
I don't have any announcements this evening.
Thank you. Ward 2, Councilmember Schuler.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say thank you to the Ward 2 voters for 2 weeks ago electing me to serve in my first full term. Very excited to continue the work on council and to serve you. I just have a couple of announcements. Continuing to work on the issues that are being presented by Dutch Brothers. I have a meeting with city staff tomorrow to discuss potential solutions and kind of operations that might help alleviate some of the traffic concerns that are happening for the residents in the area. So information forthcoming on some of those potential changes. I also want to make note of the power pole that was damaged, I think on Christmas Day, that was on 24th Avenue Southwest in Boyd, that I got a lot of pictures. That it was hanging there, it looked really dangerous and kind of egregious, and everyone would, snap pictures and put them on Facebook. I appreciate everybody being concerned about that. It has finally been addressed by OG&E. That is no longer there. It's no longer a concern. So I want to thank them for doing that. It just took a little bit longer than we would have liked. Because as I understand, it was part of kind of the long transmission lines in that corridor, and it was more difficult to remove than just a regular pole. And then I want to make note of a meeting that Councilmember Hall and I are coordinating on March 24th. That will be about our upcoming water rate increase proposition that will be on the April 5th ballot. That is, again, March 24th at 6:30 at the Central Library in the Redbud Room, and it will be a joint Ward 2 and Ward 4 meeting. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ward 3, Councilmember Lynn.
I also will be putting together a town hall meeting over the same subject and be looking for that. I'm going to work on that with probably at the library there in Ward 3. So I'll have more information on that soon, and I'll post it on Facebook and other media. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall, Ward 4.
Thank you, Councilmember Schuler, for announcing our joint Ward 2 and Ward 4 meeting. I'm looking forward to that. Also want to remind everybody that Thursday, February 24th at 11:30 is the third meeting of the Center City Administrative Delay Ad Hoc Committee. And the only other comment I have tonight is just a shout out to the Norman Central Library for their recent addition of a social worker to their staff. The social worker will be able to do referrals to assist with housing insecurity, food insecurity, mental health, substance misuse, domestic violence, as well as assistance with benefit applications and renewals. This is another extremely valuable addition to the services that are available at our public library, and I hope that people will take advantage of this service.
Thank you. Ward 5, Councilmember Tortorella.
Hello, everyone. I want to go ahead and announce that next week, Thursday, March 3rd, I'll have my town hall at Cross Point Church at 7 o'clock. It'll be on my Facebook page, and look forward to hearing and sharing concerns of the turnpike that's coming down through Cleveland County and affecting Ward 5. Hopefully, we'll have more information about the issues, eminent domain, the schedule, and so forth here. So that's next Thursday, March 3rd. 7 o'clock at Cross Point Church. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward 6, Councilmember Foreman.
So first, I would like to thank the Ward 6 residents for electing me to a second term. I'm really humbled and honored for that, so thank you so much. Also wanted to just note, like I said earlier, that I'm a dual citizen. I'm also a British citizen, and so I have a lot of Irish in me, so I'm wearing the right color for that proclamation tonight. Councilmember Studley did not steal my thunder on this, so thank you. On Wednesday, March 23rd, we're having our water rate meeting at the Eastside Library at 6:30. Mr. Mattingly will be there to answer all of your questions. I'll keep sending out reminders for that. And then just a little heads up now, and I'll repeat this as it gets closer, but I am having surgery on March 25th, and so I will be out for about 4 weeks or so. Hopefully I won't miss too much. Mr. City Manager, when is the first public hearing for the budget?
Mr. Francisco, public hearing for the budget process begins April.
I will hobble myself in here for that meeting. But just so you know, if you missed me on a couple study sessions, the first 2 meetings after my surgery will be study sessions. So that's where I'll be. So I just wanted to give my ward heads up. That's all.
Thank you. Ward 7, Councilmember Holman.
Thank you. Definitely want to encourage Ward 7 residents to stay tuned for, we haven't locked down a date yet, but we're talking about having a joint Ward 7 and Ward 8 meeting, maybe here at City Hall or at the downtown library to talk about the water rate proposal. I will probably have an additional Ward 7 meeting, probably at the Cobblestone Creek Neighborhood Clubhouse like I usually do. So when I have more information about dates and times for that, I will definitely be sure to post about that in the Ward 7 group and on my city council member page. And we'll have some more announcements at our next meeting as well regarding that. So, and just would encourage all City of Norman residents that if you're interested in this, you can attend any of the ward meetings, even if you don't live in that ward, if you're just interested in getting as much information as you can about the proposal. Also want to recognize and thank our city staff and voters for helping us cut the ribbon on the brand new transit maintenance facility, parks maintenance, and fleet maintenance facility that we cut the ribbon on last week. It's a major investment, first of its kind in several decades. I think that they said 40 or 50 years since we've had a new fleet maintenance facility. This is the place that takes care of all of our city vehicles, some of which cost more than $1 million each, like some of the fire ladder trucks. Trash trucks cost $500,000. The buses cost $500,000. The street sweepers cost $250,000. So taking care of those pieces of equipment and making sure that they last long and that they serve the citizens of Norman to the best of their ability is something we've been working for a long time as a city, and this facility will help us, I think, tremendously in that regard to take care of those things. And then lastly, just wanted to remind everybody that weather permitting, we'll be having the Community Planning and Transportation Committee this Thursday at 4 p.m. here at City Hall. I think we're going to try to meet here in this room because our study session room, the audiovisual stuff is still not working properly yet. So here Thursday at 4 p.m. we'll be resuming our discussion about electronic scooters. Many people in Norman have had issues or at the very minimum have observed the scooters on the sidewalks and different things like that. And we've been discussing them for quite a while. In our last meeting back in September, we discussed it. City staff has been doing some work to kind of work on some solutions to some of the issues that these things have presented. And so we'll be discussing that Thursday, 4 p.m. here at City Hall, unless the weather has a... Sorry?
The room's fixed.
The study session room is fixed, so we'll be in there. Last week, we were thinking it might be weeks or a month before it would be fixed. So, well, good news then. We'll be in the study session room next door, 4 p.m. Thursday, as long as the weather doesn't keep us out. Other than that, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Ward 8, Councilor Peacock.
Yeah, I just want to also extend my appreciation and gratitude to the voters of Ward 8 for allowing me the opportunity to continue to serve them for a second term. I know we've got a lot of great things bubbling on the horizon, so I'm very excited to be a part of it going forward.
All right, thank you. Okay, I've got a few announcements. One is the Crown's Tea is returned to the Central Library Sunday at 3 p.m. It's a little bit different format than normal, but I encourage you to check it out. I believe it'll be spread out throughout the library, which that's always been one of my favorite events. I have the honor to participate in the Congress of Mayors, which is an event that's organized by the Oakland Municipal League. I was elected by my colleagues to serve as Speaker of the House, and I believe I am the first female mayor to have that role. It was supposed to be this Thursday and Friday, but like most things, it's gotten moved. So next Thursday and Friday, it will be an honor to give the State of the City's speech at this important annual event. And then Saturday, March 5th, there's a couple events I wanted to share. It looks like we have a new festival in the City of Festivals, the Common Grounds Coffee Festival at the Cleveland County Fairgrounds, benefiting the Cleveland County Habitat for Humanity. And then another 1 mile fun run or 5K with Parks and Recreation, the Shamrock Run. I'm not fast, but I do pretend to get out there and move. So if you like to join me, I believe it's 1 p.m. at Ruby Grant, and you can sign up and you get a shirt and a medallion and all that fun stuff. And Ruby Grant is no joke. So just saying, you should come out and try it. I enjoy the route. So those are my announcements, but I do want to turn it over to our city manager to provide an update about the weather.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We received communication that the University of Oklahoma and Norman Public Schools will be moving to virtual programs at least through tomorrow, and we'll see how the weather holds up on Thursday. Public Works has already begun their efforts in winterizing most of our major thoroughfares, and we'll have Public Works crews working throughout the evening to make sure we are as mobile a community as possible come tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when we anticipate the weather to come in full force. Public transit is anticipated to be in full operation. Solid waste services anticipated to be in full operation, although they may be a little slower getting to your can. We anticipate all services being available to our residents throughout that cold weather event.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we are on to the consent docket. This item is placed on the agenda so that the city council can designate those routine agenda items that they wish to be acknowledged by one motion. I need a motion to place items 2 through 27, excluding item 9, which has been withdrawn on the consent docket.
So moved.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to place items 2 through 27, excluding item 9 on the consent docket. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to approve items 2 through 27, excluding item 9 on the consent docket, passes unanimously.
And I would like to say a hearty welcome back to our city clerk. Item 2, acknowledgement of receipt of the Finance Director's investment report as of January 31st, 2022. Item 3, acknowledgement of receipt of the monthly departmental reports for the month of January 2022. Item 4, acknowledgement of receipt of the Norman Forward Financial Oversight Board annual report from October 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2021. Item 5, a special claim submitted by Bethel Baptist Church in the amount of $13,937 for damage to an entryway awning by a city sanitation truck on January 17th, 2022 at 1717 West Lindsay Street. Item 6, acceptance of a donation of a reimagined mural entitled Promised Land to be placed on the retaining wall along 12th Avenue Northeast and Rock Creek Road. Item 7, a permanent water line easement from Herman Robert Usry Revocable Trust in the amount of $8,500 for the Flood Avenue Water Line Replacement Project. Item 8, change order number 2 to contract 2021-01, by and between the Norman Utilities Authority and Garney Companies Incorporated, increasing the contract by $59,043.05 for a revised amount of $2,070,994.85 and adding 127 days to the contract for the Robinson Water Line Replacement Project Phase 3, final acceptance of the project, and final payment in the amount of $177,882.27. Item 9 has been withdrawn. Item 10, change order number 1 to contract 2021-68 with PM Construction and Rehab LLC, increasing the contract by $16,426.17 for a revised amount of $1,094,204.17 for the FYE 2021 Stormwater Pipe Replacement Project, Vicksburg Avenue, Sawgrass Drive, Buckhorn Drive, final acceptance of the project and final payment in the amount of $88,619.67. Item 11, change order number 1 to contract 2021-70, by and between the Norman Utilities Authority and Sooner Site Utility and Construction, decreasing the contract by $22,800 for a revised amount of $62,300 and adding 64 calendar days of the contract for the Water Distribution System Sampling Stations Project, final acceptance of the project, and final payment in the amount of $5,110. Item 12, amendment number 3 to contract 2021-97, by and between the Norman Municipal Authority and G.E. Johnson Construction Company, increasing the contract amount by $22,659,079 for a revised contract amount of $39,024,185 for construction management at-risk services for the construction of the Young Family Athletic Center, and budget appropriation and budget transfer as outlined in the staff report. Item 13, amendment number 2 to contract 2021-115, by and between the Norman Municipal Authority and Crossland Construction Company Incorporated, increasing the contract by $2,758,145 for a revised amount amount of $4,804,873 for construction of the Norman Forward Senior Wellness Center project. Item 14, change order number 3 to contract 2122-2 with EMC Services LLC, increasing the contract by $16,016.13 for a revised amount of $891,264.13 for the Urban Concrete FYE 2022 Locations Project Bid Number 1, final acceptance of the project, and final payment in the amount of $44,563.21. Item 15, bid and contract 2122-48 by and between the Norman Utilities Authority and Cimarron Construction Company LLC in the amount of $2,039,328 and associated bonds for the Porter Avenue Waterline Replacement Project Phase 2, authorizing the Utilities Director to purchase materials on behalf of the contractor and budget transfer as outlined in the staff report. Item 16, change order number 1 to contract 2122-59 by and between the City of Norman, the Norman Utilities Authority, and Haskell Lemon Construction Company, increasing the contract amount by $146,498 for a revised contract amount of $1,587,193 to add utility and drainage structure installation to the Imhoff Bridge Emergency Repairs Project and budget appropriation and budget transfers as outlined in the staff report. Item 17, amendment number 1 to contract 2122-81 by and between the City of Norman, the Norman Municipal Authority, and Crossland Construction Company Incorporated, increasing the contract by $1,370,970 for a revised contract amount of $1,385,542 for the Norman Forward Griffin Renovation Project Phase 5. Item 18, contract 2122-93, by and between the Norman Utilities Authority and Kimberly Louise Baxter, Clifton Van Brown, Daniel Van Brown, Raymond Joseph Sindelbach Revocable Living Trust, Stanley Ray Sindelbach, and Sandra Sindelbach Lundmark in the amount of $800,000 for the purchase of real property located at 4020 East Tecumseh Road, plus closing costs to be determined prior to closing for the groundwater treatment site, and authorizing the general manager to execute all closing documents. Item 19, contract 2122-96, a reimbursement agreement by and between the City of Norman and Western Farmers Electric Cooperative in the amount of $446,469.13, and providing for the sharing of costs for transmission line relocation occasioned by the 36th Avenue Bond Project and budget transfer as outlined in the staff report. Item 20, a request for proposal in contract 2122-97 with Happy Playgrounds, LLC, in the amount of $200,000 and associated bonds for the Cherry Creek Park Playground Project and resolution granting tax exempt status. Item 21, a request for proposal and contract with Tricor Group LLC in the amount of $83,083.88 with associated bonds for the Lions Park Restroom Remodel Project and resolution granting tax exempt status. Item 22, contract 2122-99, a letter of understanding with Selectron Technologies Incorporated in the amount of $40,000 to provide software installation, implementation, and the first-year hosting and maintenance of the permitting interactive voice response system used for inspection results, messaging, scheduling, cancellations, and all related permitting processes for inspectors and contractors. Item 23, contract 2122-108 with Norman Regional Hospital Authority, affirming the vacation of certain easements contained in the original plat with the filing of the replat of NRH Medical Park West, Section 2. Item 24, City Attorney's recommendation of approval of a court order in the amount of $17,600 regarding Sean Landrum versus City of Norman, Oklahoma Workers' Compensation Commission case number 2019-05618L. Item 25, Resolution 2122-84, expanding the existing exceptions of the general prohibition of the distribution or sale for public consumption of any alcoholic beverages at certain city parks to include Ruby Grant Park. Item 26, Resolution 2122-96, appropriating $183,039 from the general fund balance to be deposited into the Net Revenue Stabilization Fund, also known as the Rainy Day Fund. Item 27, Resolution 2122-97, appropriating $350,000 from the general fund balance to update and improve Andrews Park Playground to bring it up to full Americans with Disabilities standards. I need a motion to approve or reject the consent docket.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any comments from council regarding any item on the consent docket? Councilmember Hall. Okay, Councilmember Studley.
I just want to mention item number 25. And I had reached out to Mr. Olson earlier today about this, and I just want to say for clarification really quick about that. So yes, Ruby Grant is a park, and I was a little bit nervous about selling alcohol at a park because in my head I'm like, Ruby Grant's eventually going to have football fields for practice and things like that, and I don't want to see alcohol at youth sporting events. So I reached out to Mr. Olson about that, and he assured me that that's not the case. They would never grant any special use permits for alcohol during those types of events. And I asked why Ruby Grant would need this, because some of the other venues that I've seen that were approved hold special events, like the Firehouse Art Museum or Sooner Theater, things like that. So this particular park, they have had some people reach out that would like to host venues there in the future. So Reeves Park is currently torn up under construction. And so any future events that we have there are going to be difficult to have. And so, for example, Juneteenth has requested to use Ruby Grant Park next year. And so if they would like to hold a permit to get alcohol and sell alcohol at that event, then that would be what this is for. So I just wanted to announce that for clarification, because I know there was some concern about that. And so I am good with moving forward with that.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other comments from council, the motion on the floor is to approve the consent docket. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to approve the consent docket passes unanimously.
Thank you. We do have Andy Rieger here with the Norman Forward Citizens Financial Oversight Board. If you would like to provide any comments about your update and share anything with us you'd like.
Andy Rieger, 1025 Whispering Pines, member of Eclectic Ward 4. Mayor Clark, members of the council, I'm here on behalf of the Norman Forward Citizens Financial Oversight Board, which I think I've been a member of for 7 years now. Tonight, before you is our annual report, which you accepted. It came from the 9-member board and the A team, what I call Anthony, Ashley, and ADG. That helps us get through everything. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. You might note with pride, I think, that we're almost halfway through the 15-year tax. And if you look on page 2 of the report, we're also almost halfway through our projects. So very excited. Most of them have come in under budget, most of them on time, and we're very excited about it. And the board is 9 members, and I think Dr. Rogers is also a member of the board. She's here tonight. I think that's all of them that are here. But anyway, I'm happy to answer your questions. We try to meet. We try to review the finances, what's been done, what we anticipate being done. Look at future trends, kind of the taxation, what's coming in, what's not coming in. So we've been through some ups and downs, and we're excited that things are looking up. And Anthony's actually optimistic at our meetings now. And so well, almost optimistic. Optimistic's not a word he knows. So anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Councilmember Holman.
Just looking over, it looks like, other than the Canadian River Park, pretty much all of the are either done or we're in the process of doing them. Or looks like we are really making a lot of really good progress on these.
Yeah, I think it is. I think that's a testament to the perseverance of Judd Foster and now Jason. Things are moving along, so we're excited about it. I mean, we like to see ribbons cut. We'd like to see those things move forward.
Well, I think given it's the 15-year tax, for some reason, a lot of folks wanted everything to be done right away at the very beginning, but it does take time. But I think it says a lot that halfway into it, we're well down the road to getting these projects done before the 15 years is up, I think. So it's really remarkable, and our staff, our board, and citizens that have helped us get here, it's really something else, I think, something to be proud of.
Definitely. As a former member of the Norman Forward Sales Tax Citizen Financial Oversight Board, thank you all for your service. It is such a unique opportunity for our community. And as we reach the halfway point to this sales tax initiative, I want us to not just pat ourselves on the back about what we've accomplished. I want to think about what there's left to do in our community. I had a wonderful conversation with Captain Clement the other day, and I think, like MAPS, it doesn't have to just be quality of life projects. when we renew Norman Forward, like maps for a Norman Forward 2, we need to envision other needs in our community and gaps that can be filled. And she had mentioned the need for a police department. So I would encourage the city manager, before we spend millions of dollars renovating a building that may not be worthy of millions of dollars, perhaps we look to a bigger project, one more suitable perhaps by the Emergency Operations and Communications Center, so we can be competitive in recruiting top talent to the Norman Police Department. That's just one example of many things that we can accomplish, again, when we pass Norman Forward for a second round. Maps may have gone first, but we are just getting started. So I hope we can all be very optimistic about what's to come for our community. Thank you, Mr. Rieger.
Thank you, and I'm not sure I signed up for a 15-year term. So, thank you.
15 more years, yeah.
Oh, we appreciate you, sir. On to our items off consent. Item 28, ordinance 2122-33 upon second and final reading. Rezoning 115 South Peters Avenue from C3 Intensive Commercial District to SPUD, Simple Planned Unit Development District. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on second reading, section by section.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I believe we have a presentation.
No staff report. It's my turn. Good evening. My name's Jim Adair. Okay.
Okay, I was wondering where that was as well. Okay, Councilor Peacock from Ward 8. Oh, don't go anywhere, Mr. Adair. You're next.
And I have worked professionally on this project, so pursuant to Section 2-103D of the city's code, the ethics ordinance, I intend to recuse from both the discussion and the vote on this item because I have an actual conflict.
Thank you. All right, before us, council members, Councilor Peacock will recuse, so you may cast your votes. Entertain a motion first.
Second.
Okay, now we can vote.
What are we voting on?
The
Allowing
recusal.
him to recuse.
Ah,
Okay.
To allow.
I didn't know it took a vote.
Oh, what happened if we said no?
We allow you.
Passed, and the motion passes unanimously with Councilmember Peacock abstaining.
See you later, sir.
I knew that was going to happen. Good evening. My name's Jim Adair. I've always been trained that you give your mailing address, and my office mailing address is 111 North Peters, which means for 50 years I've looked down the street at 115 South Peters. We've recently had the opportunity to reinvest in downtown, and to be completely honest, this is the building we wanted. We looked at it, we had a plan for it, and we felt it was primed to be moved into its next chapter in history. This is the fifth time we've been before you in about 16 or 17 years to ask for loft apartment zoning. We're doing it a little different this time, and I'll elaborate on that in a minute. The first three projects, which comprise a total of 11 units, are completely finished and 100% occupied. The fourth project we got into zoned before COVID. In all honesty, we had some design issues on our end, some slowness on COVID, and some indetermination on what we were going to do downstairs. We will be back a month from now to answer all those questions and renew that one, so I won't elaborate any further on it tonight. I do want to say that redevelopment is always a challenge. Anytime we redevelop something, we're taking a box with a fixed parameter and we're trying to fit a new use into it that meets a current need. Obviously, we get to bring the property up to current building standards, building codes. We get to meet the life safety standards, which sometimes getting a fire exit out of an interior building can be a challenge. On this particular one tonight, the part of it that we've really focused on and has driven this is complying with ADA, with the American Disabilities Act. And again, I'll talk about that some more in a second. But we're dealing with buildings that are typically 100 to 125 years old, and we believe they're truly part of our heritage here. I want to talk about lofts in general for just a second. Councilmember Hall mentioned her Center City Committee meeting a minute ago. We're about a block out of Center City. Obviously, it stops at the railroad track. I don't want to try Center City tonight, but for Councilman Holman and myself and our friend Richard McCowan, this is our third time at Center City. We keep refining it. We keep trying to get a new type of housing in downtown. Let me say, for me personally, Center City's added to my vocabulary. Placemaking, walkability, average, active edge, missing middle, and especially young professional housing are now part of my vocabulary. And in all honesty, we think that's what we're trying to do here. The plan before you will have 5 basically one-bedroom efficiency apartments upstairs and one one-bedroom unit on the ground floor. A couple of weeks ago, I was visiting after the Planning Commission meeting with one of the planning commissioners, and our comment, and this is speculative on our part, but our comment was that 98 or 99% of the housing in Norman, Oklahoma fits into 2 broad categories. You're either in a single-family detached house or you're in a student-oriented apartment complex. I mean, we have some duplexes, we have some alternative varieties of housing, but not a lot. I don't mean to say that our 6 units here is going to move the needle very far, but what it does do is gives us an opportunity to take a building in downtown Norman, revitalize it hopefully for the next 50 years, and see it restored. This always before we've asked for residential zoning above commercial. This time we're going a little different route. We're asking for small planned unit development. As we got into this, we realized immediately that we needed to do an ADA compliant unit. And at this point, it's kind of where my personal biases got involved. For 50 years, I've had the pleasure to be involved in one manner or another in the management of a 6-story office building. And I talked to the fire marshal before Planning Commission meeting a couple of weeks ago because I wanted to get my story right. When you have a credible fire alarm in a multi-story building that's served by an elevator, one of the first things the fire department does is they come in and they have a keyed access that they turn that changes the controls of the elevators. At that point, that elevator will only come to the ground floor and won't go back up. Well, as we started playing through that scenario, and let me say, I have absolutely no criticism of our police department, our fire department, or any of their policies. I sure don't have a better way to do it. But as we looked at that scenario in the context of a 2nd floor residential apartment that would be occupied by someone who was dependent upon a wheelchair, we got to looking for a better answer. And to be honest with you, I have to give Councilman Peacock, he was the one that came up with the solution for us and suggested we go SPUD and do one ground floor apartment. Let me say, Jane and Ananice have been wonderful to work through with us on this. And I'll speak for myself and let them speak for it. It is not our desire to set a precedent for ground floor residential downtown. We're going to have about 2,500 or 3,000 square feet left here. I'd be delighted if it went retail. We will probably end up going offices on it. But we didn't think it was appropriate for all of it to be residential. So we do not want to set a precedent in that manner. Those of you who know me know I could stand up here and talk about downtown for the next 2 hours, but you all have an executive session to get to. I'll stop there, and I'd be delighted to try and answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Adair. May I be one of the first up here to thank you for all the investments you've made in downtown Norman. I moved here in 2005 for law school, and downtown is a completely different place, and I know it's because of investments like yours, and I appreciate it. Do we have any questions from council regarding this item? Councilmember Hall.
Just have a few questions. Number one, I want to thank you for bringing this project to us and for being willing to invest in an ADA accessible unit. downtown. Not sure I'm aware of any other option like that downtown. And I just have really more, you answered actually some of my questions, but I also wanted to highlight a few of the things that you have contained in your SPUD. So I think, just as a reminder, when it was zoned C3, you're requesting a SPUD, and C3 zoning, you are not required to have any parking, but you did make some allowances within your SPUD for parking. So could you elaborate a little bit on how that's going to work?
We have a project across the street that we can pull one parking spot off of and dedicate it to the ADA unit.
Mm-hmm. So it will be a handicapped accessible space? Yeah, okay. And then you did mention that it is a historic building. I think it was constructed in 1930, is that right?
I've got mixed reports.
Okay.
The Primrose family was kind enough to give us their father's file when we closed on the building, and in it was the Norman transcript front page article from 1973 when Turner Primrose did the last renovation on the building, and it commented that it had been the original hotel in Norman. To be honest with you, we thought it was kind of neat that we're kind of going full circle and bringing it back to residential purposes, or at least partly. I think it may be older than 1930, but we've not pinned it down exactly. Of course, all of downtown has what I kind of call first-tier historical designation, which means you're eligible to apply. We're doing sufficient changes to the building that I don't think we qualify for the historical credits, and are not going that way.
Yeah. I actually looked at the downtown inventory today, and it was inventoried as a non-contributing structure, even though it was built, I believe, in the 30s at some point. So that brings me to my next question, because I did have an opportunity to take a tour of the building, which I appreciated very much, and noticed that there were a lot of windows on the alley side that had been bricked in. So what's your intention on those?
You're going to give me a chance to brag on city staff.
Yeah. Happy to do that.
Twice before, we've done projects on the interior of the block and wanted to, basically on the south side of Main Street, do new windows on the east and the west sides. And previously, we've been told, no, we couldn't do that, that our neighbor might want to add an additional story or add onto the back of their building. And if they did that, we'd have a brick wall right up against our window. And certainly, we would never propose that we had the right to restrict what our neighbor would do. Our attitude was always we could have sunlight for the period of time that, until they did that. Meeting with Greg Clark a couple of weeks ago, I told him, I said, I'm going to ask for a third time. I don't give up easy. We desperately need to do some windows, especially on the south side. We're built right on the property line, and the transcript parking lot is immediately south of us. Literally, Greg emailed me back within an hour and said we have to maintain the fire integrity of that wall. If you want to do windows, you'd have to do fireproof glass, and fireproof glass is really expensive. Well, but that's not a no. That's a yes. And so we're really excited to do that. I mean, at least one of the middle units, if we got turned down on that, the only natural light in it would be through a skylight. So I think, yes, we intend to open to the north. The windows are along the alley. Now, we do have a building adjacent to us that's as tall as we are to the east.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll open the windows back up.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
All right, seeing no other questions from council regarding this item, this is an opportunity for the public to make comments on this item. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak this evening? No, we do not. Council members, do you have any final comments? Councilmember Holman.
Just want to express my thanks as well to Mr. Adair for coming forward with this project and all the previous projects that he's brought before council that I have enthusiastically voted for previously. Downtown urban living is something I'm a big fan of. Reusing existing buildings that we already have and giving them another 50 to 100 years of life, is something I've really been pushing for as well. And as mentioned, the units that we've approved before are all occupied. There's a high demand for people that want to live in downtown Norman, and we really haven't built anything new as far as buildings or apartment buildings or anything. It's all been done by restoring and reusing existing buildings. So we're very fortunate to have that, and I'm looking forward to seeing this building get a facelift. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall.
So I'm also in full support of this project, and I just wanted to outline a few of the reasons why. We see a lot of SPUDs presented to us as council members, and I always like to point out the ones that are used for the intention that we have outlined what the purpose is. So in this particular SPUD, we're getting design ingenuity, we're getting revitalization and redevelopment in an area, we're promoting infill development that's compatible and harmonious with the adjacent uses. We also, as Councilmember Holman mentioned, we're getting some more loft housing types. And this is a housing type that is in very short supply and in great demand. And the kind of missing middle and alternative housing types that we're actually trying to encourage developers to do in core Norman. So, and then with the addition of an ADA accessible unit, this is something that's also needed. We've identified that need, and it's not currently allowed under C3 zoning, so another reason why a SPUD is an appropriate use in this case. The other thing I really like about it that was mentioned in the SPUD is the possibility of live-work units. A live-work unit is the kind of living arrangement where someone may live on the second floor of a building and have a dedicated workspace on the first floor of the building. Sometimes they can be connected. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And so because there is going to be a significant retail or commercial piece to this, we also have the opportunity for maybe one of the first live-work functioning units in downtown. So I'm looking forward to see how that evolves. And then I would also appreciate giving a nod to not wanting to set a precedent for residential on the first floor by maintaining some of that commercial retail presence on the first floor. And then, to just cap it all off, the whole idea of this is to strengthen our mixed-use options downtown, which definitely promotes our buzzwords that we like, that are pedestrian-oriented and multimodal and a sense of place. And so that is exactly the kind of development that we're looking for downtown.
Excellent. Thank you. So seeing no other final comments, the motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on second reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon second reading passes unanimously with Councilmember Peacock abstaining.
Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion to adopt or reject the ordinance on final reading. Thank you. The motion on the floor is to adopt the ordinance on final reading. Council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been cast, and the motion to adopt the ordinance upon final reading passes unanimously with Councilmember Peacock abstaining.
Thank you. Now on to miscellaneous comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the City Council as a whole. Remarks should be directed to the Council as a whole and limited to 3 minutes or less. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers signed up tonight?
We have one mayor, Cynthia Rogers. Give me just a second, Cindy. Okay.
Yeah, make sure you have the timer on. No, only kidding. Cindy Rogers, Ward 4. Good evening, everybody. I wore my warm clothes because it's cold. So I was very happy that we're having this discussion about water and our water rates and our water needs, because water is our most important asset in our community. And while I agree with the need to increase our water rates to pay for operations and maintenance and for the upgrades and the new DEQ requirements, I would also like to express my concern that we make sure we're having a balanced view of how we pay for expansions in our program. And I was just looking back at my notes because I keep everything. We do have a city ordinance that was passed in November 2014 that requires council to review connection fees relative to their sufficiency to fund new capacity. Well, that really doesn't mean anything. In 2016, we had a Raft Ellis study. They came out with fees that were substantially more than the fee we were charging. The fees weren't actually changed since the last water rate election. There was a discussion in 2018 about the fees. There was a lot of pressure to have that discussion. I believe my partner in crime was the one that pressured council and said, hey, remember, you're supposed to talk about this. And at that meeting, the discussion focused on the desire to keep Norman's connection fees in line with those of other communities. And it didn't really discuss what the costs were and whether we were recouping the costs we needed to expand new capacity. So when I hear discussions like, oh, we will talk about this and we will revisit this and we promise, I find those to be rather empty because that promise was made in 2014, and until now we haven't really had a serious discussion about that. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to speed up. I did an estimate of the number of new connections we've had just of homes since 2015, and it amounts to about $5 million that we've shorted ourselves. So if you wait for the bill to come in and then you say, oh, we don't have the money, you can't go back and recoup it. So
Thank you. All right, I believe that was our one comment for this evening. Item 29 is consideration of adjourning into an executive session as authorized by Oklahoma Statutes Title 25, Section 307B3, to discuss the acquisition of real property located at 1210 West Robinson Street and right-of-way acquisition in connection with the Porter Avenue Streetscape 2019 bond project. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn out of the City Council regular session and convene into an executive session. Thank you. The motion on the floor is to adjourn out of the City Council regular session and convene into an executive session in order to discuss the acquisition of real property located at 1210 West Robinson Street and right-of-way acquisition in connection with the Porter Avenue Streetscape bond project. Madam Clerk, will you please, council members, you may cast your votes.
All votes have been unanimously.
Thank you. See you in executive session.